What's going on, guys? Thank you for joining me on this episode of the podcast. On this episode, we got Matt Action on the mic. Really stoked to have him on the show. I originally met him last year in Seattle, Washington at a jam called Sweet 16. Him and his squad ended up winning the jam. I went to talk to him afterwards and he was super humble, super passionate about this dance, and that is why I want to get him on the mic for this episode. Now, Matt has been affiliated with some really well-renowned crews such as Rock Force and Waseda Breakers. But during his come up, he's been mentored by a lot of very reputable B-boys as well from various crews, and you'll probably know all of them. So it's super cool to get that perspective, just to see how that influenced his style and where he's at now with his dance. So let's get right into this episode. It's a good one. What's going on, guys? Wolvie here, and welcome to the CYPHER. On the In the CYPHER BBOY podcast, I interview highly talented and experienced B-boys and B-girls, and they share their stories and knowledge with you to help you become a better dancer. Now, joining me on the mic for this episode is Matthew Perez, but you probably know him as Matt Action from Rock Force Crew and Waseda Breakers. He's currently based in Tokyo, but grew up in Fremont, California. His teachers include members of Beatz N Pieces, Soul Control, Skill Methodz, and of course, Rock Force and Waseda Breakers. In addition to his breaking education, he also received a master's in business administration from Waseda University in Tokyo. Combining what he learned in school and breaking has led him to become a founding member of Spin Control LLC, a company that innovates clothing to push breaking culture forward. All right, Matthew, really stoked to have you on the mic. Thank you for joining me. You ready to get into it, bro?
Let's do it.
Dope, man. I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to see what happens with this interview. Let's do it.
All right, chill. Okay, let's just get started by telling us a little bit more about your personal life outside of breaking.
Okay. Just in general?
Yeah, just in general, what you got going on, what you like to do in your spare time.
All right. Well, I live in Tokyo and I'm married to a Canadian Japanese person. She's actually full Japanese, but she grew up in Vancouver. So what I do outside of breaking is I hang out with her a lot. We go around Tokyo and do whatever we kind of feel like doing. Lots of good food out here, stuff like that. So yeah, pretty much outside of breaking is hanging out with her or hanging out with my friends from Japan right now. Yeah, just normal human stuff, you know?
Dope. Are you originally from Japan?
No, I'm from a town called Fremont in the Bay Area in California. And I grew up there until I was about 18, and then I moved to San Jose for college. And then I studied abroad for a year in Tokyo. And I really liked it. And so after doing that, I went back, finished school in San Jose, and then I went to do a master's of business degree at a school called Waseda University in Tokyo. So I ended up here, and I was working out here, and I met my wife, and then I just decided, all right, I'm moving out here. So that's how I ended up in Tokyo again.
Solid. Okay, that's dope. And I gotta ask then, where along those lines did you start breaking?
I started breaking when I was about 13. There was some kids that I started with. They called themselves the AE. It was like Asian something. It was just a bunch of Asian kids in like junior high school. It's like Jason, Jonathan Shea, Ben Yan, Arnold Hua. And they were just doing flips, and they thought it was breaking. They didn't really know what they were doing was tricking. But I had a little bit of gymnastics experience. So I was like, oh, I could flip better than them. So like from the get, I was just in battle mode, trying to beat people, you know?
Yeah.
And so I went out, I was actually super chubby at the time. And I just started like trying to flip, and I totally got hurt. And I was the worst one out of all of them. So around 13, I kind of just like started trying to do stuff on the grass. Yeah, from there, yeah, it's kind of just a wrap from there. Got into it and got deeper as things went on, you know, met mentors and whatnot.
Dope. Who are your mentors, I guess?
Yeah, so those first guys, we we're trying to learn more about breaking, and so we would just locally look around, and we met some people from different high schools, and those people brought us to the junior college where there's this b-boy named Power Surge from a crew called Beatz N Pieces, and he had a class at this studio every Friday, but it was like a college campus studio. He was teaching breaking 101, I think is what it was called. So we snuck in. We totally weren't paying tuition or anything. We just snuck in and like wanted to see what was up. And he was super cool. He's just a b-boy, you know, and he kind of took me under his wing after that, after a few months. So I started breaking with them I started breaking with Beatz N Pieces crew like twice a week. And I just really wanted to get down with that crew. And then from Surge, I met so many other mentors like RJ, B-Boy Cool Raul is his name, all the other Beatz N Pieces guys, Mega Man. That's how I got introduced to Soul Control with Charles. And yeah, kind of went from there, I would say.
Okay, cool. With the name like Power Surge, he must be pretty cool.
He's a cool guy, man. He's like, actually, he used to have some really good windmills. Like they were insane. I don't know about now, but he had like all the like, I don't know, like in the early 2000s, there was like a bar for power. And I think he kind of had the basic power down, but his name was Sergio. So they gave him the name Power Surge, and it was dope. Like I always wanted a cool name like that. I actually got my b-boy name from him. He tried to call me Matt Business for a while, and he tried to call me like some other stuff. It just like wasn't sticking. And one day it just became Matt Action, and I don't know how it happened, but I'm cool with it now.
Yeah, chill. Okay, dope.
Yeah,
And then so then you linked up with Soul Control?
yeah. So I represented Beatz N Pieces for a really long time, and while I was there, in my hometown, like I said, is Fremont. There's this other b-boy named Mega Man, and before I'd started breaking, he kind of had retired. He'd already been to UK b-boy champs. He'd been to I think he'd been to like Battle of the Year. They won the first freestyle session ever, and he had already retired. So I didn't really meet him until one day he just kind of came into the studio because he knew Surge, and I met him, and then after that, I saw how crazy his power moves were, and I always wanted to head spin. I could already flare. I could already like do some really bad windmills. And he kind of came in and he just gave me all the advice that I needed. And he didn't come in a lot because Mega Man is like a crazy entrepreneur. So he's just like always doing other things now, you know. He still loves breaking. But his main focus is those other things. So he'd come in once in a while, and then eventually I got his phone number. I would call the guy at practice and be like, hey, this isn't working. Like, what am I doing wrong with this? And he'd be like, oh, just do this and this and this. Like if you talk to him, he's like the most upbeat, happy guy. And he's like, yeah, just do that and call me back in a couple weeks. So I would just call him and he would give me advice. And then when he came in, like I think that was a really big turning point for me because I learned from Power Surge, I learned so much footwork. Power Surge is a footwork head, and he's got some dope footwork for sure. I feel like he was underrated. And then he wanted me to always get into more tops, Power Surge, but once I saw Mega's power, I was just like, yo, I got to get that. And that's kind of where I went for a long time, was down that power route. And I think that's kind of where I got more of my reputation from, was being able to do power in the Bay Area, because in the Bay, there were so many amazing dancers. There's like, you had like Roxrite, Kid David, Morris, Kareem, Flexum. Like it was insane back then. And that generation, they all kind of went different ways. They all like kind of had life happen. Some moved to LA, some moved other places, and then the Bay was just empty. And then I was one of the only few people who could like really execute high level moves. And I think that's where I started to kind of get my shine, was from there.
Totally. And that's, I guess I discovered you as you're such a, I don't know how to say it, like dynamic, explosive b-boy. Anyways, that's how I describe your style anyways.
Thanks, man. I feel like I try to keep it going, but the kids these days are so crazy, and I feel like myself as a dancer, I've really changed. I still do power, and most of what I show on my like Instagram and stuff is going to be power, but I do feel like the core of my dance is now a lot different than just power. So that's been a cool little change, especially since getting into Rock Force. The focus has really shifted, I think, in my dance.
Totally. Can you maybe go into what you mean by that? I know you're pretty well rounded. Like you got some really dope patterns as well, like in your footwork. But what do you mean by I guess getting into Rock Force and how that changed your style?
Yeah, well, when I met, I got into Rock Force after I got out of Beatz N Pieces. Beatz N Pieces was just like everybody was kind of getting older. The demographic of it was just changing. And anyway, I got out of it, and then Polsky approached me, and he wanted me to get down with Rock Force, and I was like, all right. And so I went to a practice, and the first thing that they made me do was like 2 hours of two steps, man. Like I was just going two steps, and he was like, nah, the feeling, you gotta have the feeling. And like it was just like Polsky's really intense, man. Like I feel like the guy probably eats his Oreos in the morning to Wu-Tang, you know, like he's an intense guy, but it's dope. Like he loves the culture so much, and it shows in the way he teaches and the way he like works with his students. So he made me like basically just start from ground zero. You know, he like made me go through all the music from the 70s when it started going up to now. And that was something that I don't think Mega Man ever really cared. Not that he doesn't care, I think he appreciates it, but it's not something that he studies in that respect. You know, he was more about the dynamics. So a lot of my earlier dancing is more about the dynamics. And I think now I'm more about like I'm more about I've realized that I can learn all the dynamics, and now I'm really trying to create something of my own a little bit more, and really take in the heritage of the dance and make sure that I like am contributing something rather than just like doing crazy shit, because that's one thing versus I don't know, like
Totally.
representing something with your dance, you know?
Yeah, straight up. So how long ago was this that you linked up with Rock Force?
I got into Rock Force after I finished my master's. So I'd moved home, and I think that was like about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years almost now. And I was totally not dancing that much actually. Like I graduated, and then I was just working on starting this business. And then I got into Rock Force, and I was like, you know what? Like I really love this dance, man. Like it's not something like when I was in school, I'd kind of stopped dancing as much, maybe like twice a week just for fun. And then once I got into Rock Force and I started seeing like how Ives was doing and like meeting my heroes, like the Kareems and stuff like that. Yeah, it kind of like reignited a fire in me for sure. So it's
Nice.
been good to like have a little bit of a comeback and like try to get more involved in the scene again. But yeah, it was about a year and a half ago.
Okay, dope. And I know you mentioned, I guess, the 2 hours of two step, and
Yeah, man, that was crazy.
and you've been, I guess, studying and learning more about the history. How has that affected your style or changed your style, or
Um,
the way you dance, I guess?
I guess like it's like I'm not really trying to be the craziest top rocker out there, man. Like I love what Why Not does. I love what these guys up top do. It's amazing. And I think for me it's more of an understanding of like where this came from and why it's important, like a deeper understanding than I had before. I always kind of knew a little bit about it. But realizing that like what Polsky's teaching me is like a very East Coast tradition of dance. And there's also like every scene has a tradition of dance within the breaking scene. So I live in Tokyo now, and I'm in a crew called Waseda Breakers, and that crew is super different in their foundation. And if you look at like the West Coast, we have a foundation too in the Bay Area and throughout the whole West Coast, including Vancouver. And Vancouver has its own scene and their own history. And so I guess like what I learned from that from Rock Force is that the importance of protecting your tradition and your scene's dance and carrying that on, especially going into the internet age, which is already like started in like 2005 or six, right? Whenever I kind of got started. But you look at older
Hmm.
older footage from like 2000, the 90s. Every country had this like crazy different approach to the dance. And I think a lot of it gets forgotten now. Like certain b-boys get popular and then everybody looks like that person. Um, and so I think what I really learned from Rock Force is not, okay, I need to do more two steps as much as like I need to protect my tradition and push it forward. And so, that's why I still continue to do power. I'm not trying to be Kid Columbia. He's crazy. Like I don't want to be that guy, but I want to make sure that I can execute all the things that like my teachers were able to do and then try to take it a little bit in a different direction. Like, do I want to take it more of a stylish direction or do I want to take it a complete power direction? But it was really just like the understanding that like, all right, like I'm a dancer and I want to do personally as best as I can, but really this is a movement, and my job is to be a good like part of that movement, push forward what's important and contribute something. So it's really a conversation, and that's one thing that I learned from Rock Force too is it's a long-term conversation over time, like the history of this dance, right? But even in like the short term, when you're in a cipher, you're dancing with somebody else, or when you're in a battle, that's a conversation too. and you have to use your dance to express that, and to make sure that you are communicating and you're not just like, yelling the craziest things. One of my mentors, his name was Motion. He had the his name is Motion from Skill Methods. Actually, he was in the Bay Area
Skill
when I was in
Methods,
Beatz N
yeah.
Pieces. He's from Canada, actually. He's from Calgary.
Yeah, I met him when he was down here in Vancouver, I think last year or something.
Dude, he's like the Morpheus of breaking, bro.
Totally.
Your mind to the Matrix, But
Yeah.
he kind of, what was I talking about? Shoot, I just forgot.
Cypher, how's the conversation?
Yeah. Oh wait. Oh man, I totally just blanked. He had like this. He said something really dope one time, and I totally forgot what it was just now. If I went back and listened to it, I'd remember. I'm so sorry.
No, it's all good, bro. When you
um,
remember it, DM it to me right away, okay?
all right. Yeah. Yeah. I'll definitely bring it up. I'm sure it'll come up again because yeah, Motion just has a way of approaching breaking. That was really influential for me, I think, in the way that I first thought about it. And oh man, I'm so upset. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's all
Let's just.
good. How about this? Influential how?
All right. Well, Mosh is he's like a guru, like the way he approaches it. So yeah, he kind of just like the way he'll talk about breaking or the way that he'll break it down for you is crazy. So there's like one time where I was talking to Mosh and he was like, yo, like if you want to really create a style, just take a pen and pad and like draw your character. Like in this world, you're this character, right? Like you're Matt. But like in this world, the breaking world, you're whoever you want to be. So draw your character. And I was like, what? Like it was like way too crazy for me. And so he explained it. He's like, yo, like if you look at Abstract is a ninja. Like everything that he does is a ninja. Like if you see him move, he won't make any sound. That's his character. And if you look at Lancer from Calamities, he's like this like Lao gangster. Like his whole style is like crazy out there, and that's what they represent. So I remember like thinking like, okay, like what is mine then? And I remember like at the time, I think it's different now. I was like, yo, I'm just trying to be swift like a samurai. Like everything that I do should be like exact, precise, hit to kill. There's no
Mhm.
waste. And that was like why I went down that technical path, was to kind of like fulfill what Moshe told me at that one point in time. So there's like different ways to approach the dance, and I think Moshe is one of the dopest people to talk to when it comes to that, like
Right.
artistic expression. So that wasn't what I was gonna say. There's just way too many lessons from Moshe that I've gotten. But that was one of the weirdest, most actually helpful advice that I've ever had, because it really helped me visualize like, all right, what am I trying to portray with these movements? Like what character am I representing on the floor?
Right. I love how you got so specific on that. Like that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, man.
good. Yeah. So, would you describe your style now as if you were the samurai, or would you
Uh,
describe your style differently now?
nah, I think it's a little bit different now. There's aspects of it where I try to be real precise and I try to like, hit to kill for sure. But I think now I don't know. I don't think of it as that way. I think that was a great mind exercise because you can do it. You don't have to be that character forever. You could be anything. Like there can be a day where you decide I'm going to be an alien or whatever, and go crazy with that style, and it'll add to who you are ultimately. But when you're on the floor, you can be whoever you want, and that's the beauty of it. So I think when I'm out there now, it's more of me trying to just one, do what I said I'm gonna do, but then kind of express however I'm kind of feeling at that moment at the same time. So if I do want to be the blow up guy at that moment, then I can be that guy. Or if I want to like try to just get in on some text, like some footwork patterns in text or whatever, I can get in on that too. Or if I'm really feeling the music, then like I'm gonna just be on the beat. And it's not limited to one thing, but yeah, it's a little bit, I don't know, it's always a process of self-exploration, every practice, every time you battle. So it's a battle against yourself to how free you can get.
Totally. It's kind of meta, but it's true.
It really is, man, because like you can already do all the shit that you've been practicing. And then it's like a question of, can you like in that moment own it. And I think that's the cool part about the dance is you never know.
100%. Cool. So I guess it's a good segue into I guess where your head's at when you battle. Like, do you go into it really prepared, knowing exactly what you're gonna do, or do you listen to the music, or wait to see what your opponent does and respond accordingly?
Yeah, for me, and this is different for everybody. machine is totally in a different world. I's in a different world. Like I'm in my own thing. So what I try to do now, and it's what I try to do, I guess I'll say that like as I've progressed through my years of dancing, it's really changed. So it depends on who I'm against. Like if I'm against somebody who's I know I'm gonna beat if I do nothing, I'm gonna just go out and have fun, you know? But if I gotta like go up against like somebody that I think is dope or like I'm gonna have a hard time with, I'm gonna make sure that I stack up a couple things in my mind before going out. Like, all right, I'm gonna hit this and this. And then it's a goal of like how can I make this match to make sense? And it doesn't always have to be just in the sense of like how am I going to smash this beat exactly 100%? Sometimes like there's so many more aspects to a battle, you know, like there's the entire crowd, there's the judges, there is the music, there's proximity to how close you are when you do something. There's all these different variables that you can use to your advantage to win or to lose, you know? So I think what I'm just trying to do when I go in is in a high pressure situation is just execute those couple moves that I want. And once those are done, once like I hit that first move, like I usually have a start and then I usually try to have a finish. And then I usually have one thing in between. So I'll try to have at least three, you know? Mm-hmm. Okay. And if that first thing goes good, then all the pressure's off. Cause then it's like, all right, like it's done. Like I'm feeling it right now. Yeah. And if it doesn't go good, then you can usually kind of see it with me, which is something I should probably work on. Cause if I mess up, man, some of my stuff is so technical. When I mess up, it's obvious, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, once I hit that first thing, it's like, all right, now I'm just in my zone and I don't have to think about it too much. And then sometimes I'll forget the second and third thing because it's just like, it's already over. Like you just know you won your round, you know?
Totally.
So
yeah. And then, so you say like three things. Can you like explain like what exactly these are? Like, are they combos?
Yeah. So I try to be really well-rounded. And I don't know if that's really the solution as much anymore. When I started in like 2005 and when I actually started battling in 2009, like I took 4 years before I started battling, just to like build up confidence and feel like I could do anything, you know?
Right.
Back then you could just focus on one thing. There was a level of specialization that was okay. And I just focused on power. And as like the game has kind of progressed, it's become very much about being well-rounded. I think that now, because everybody's so well-rounded, there's a little bit of a need for specialists again, you know? But when it comes to how I format my rounds, I try to make sure that I have one cool little footwork tech, one big power combo, and then like a good clean freeze or like a really crazy freeze if it's somebody that's strong, you know? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I try to just go for like a complete package thing. And then on top of doing those three things, protecting the music, protecting like the tradition of where you're coming from in your dance, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of my approach to battles or like individual rounds.
Cool. Love it. So it's not every day that I get to talk to, I guess, somebody who's part of such like high tier, like big major crews.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, they're cool, man. They're definitely amazing crews I've been lucky enough to be affiliated with, you know?
Cool. So I guess we haven't touched so much on was it Waseda?
Waseda,
right?
Yeah,
Waseda
Breakers.
Waseda Breakers. Yeah. Cool. So I just want to talk a little bit more about I guess your relationship with those guys and what your practices are like and how they've influenced you.
Yeah, so actually my purpose with getting down with Waseda had nothing to do with me wanting to dance like Waseda at all. And it came more from a respect place for me getting down with them, because like I said, I come from a place, I have a tradition, and like now that I'm in Waseda, there's a little bit of a tradition there as well, you know. I would say that I respect the Waseda Breakers because I feel like they're one of the very few crews in Japan that has kept that Japanese tradition going. So when you look at how their younger generation dances, like this kid named Azuma, he does power, but he does it different. Like it is some weird Japanese power. And Hideki or Bobu Chanshin, those are two other guys that are in the young gen. I feel like they've kept the Waseda Japanese style of breaking together in a place, you know, Japan is a very homogenous society, and when they see something that's cool, they gravitate towards it really hard. And when you look at them now, like the current Japanese dance scene, it looks a lot like Skill Methods, a lot. And then there's like a couple kids who look Korean. But doing that old school Japanese style, there's not that many who've really kept it. And Waseda Breakers as a crew has really kept that together. And when they think about who they want to put into their crew, their goal is never to like win the craziest next competition. It's always like, well, who kind of keeps what we're about alive, you know? And the mindset that they have in towards breaking is that there's always the mainstream and then there's the anti. And they kind of look at themselves as the anti towards the mainstream of breaking, you know? And how I fit into that is I'm a respectful observer. Like I love it, you know? I love being able to be around Atsuki and see like the crazy stuff he does, the creativity, you know? And it's just so different from my foundation that it's like, it keeps my practices interesting, you know? And I love just being able to represent with those guys.
Totally. What take us like inside one of those practices then? Is it really structured or are you guys just vibing out?
Yeah, they're different. Every crew that I've been in has a different way of practicing and getting down. So Waseda's practices is there's like usually two ciphers going, and everybody kind of moves at their own pace. Like I always keep it like cipher style. Like I go in and I bust my moves. I try to make sure I hit tops. I hit everything, you know, and I get loose. And they'll go in, and sometimes like somebody will like do a move and they'll mess up, and then they'll just sit there for a second and like rethink about it and try to like. It's a lot more choreographed in a sense with the way that they're moving, you know? But it all comes together nicely when their final product is done. Whereas like with Rock Force, it's always a cipher practice and everybody's going hard. Like, and that's just like, and I think that's the mindset differences, you know, with Beatz N Pieces, it was more like Rock Force, but it had its own differences too, you know? And so I think for any crew now, like you just have to figure out what kind of, like each person is like a tool, right? So you kind of figure out what kind of tools you have and how can you create the best environment for each of those people to hone their skills, you know? And it's going to be different for every crew and every culture, which is why it's dope when crews come together in battle, because you see those cultures clash, you know?
Right. One thing I remember when we did meet out in Seattle was how proud you were to be repping Waseda Breakers. So I think that's really dope.
Oh yeah, man, I love that crew. They're so dope. They influence me in ways that is not like I'm not gonna go out and try to do like a floating leg move like Atsuki, you know, that's just not my style.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, like it's really refreshing to be like, there is that way of approaching this dance, you know? Because like I feel like people get so caught up now and like, oh, I need a cool little quick thread here and then a freeze like this here, you know, and just seeing how they approach it and being so original with it is just refreshing.
Okay, dope. So I know you practice. It sounds like a lot of your crew practices are cipher practices. So do you also have, I guess, some solo practices or put aside time to, I guess, drill on the like the technical stuff and create
Yeah,
your own moves?
definitely, definitely. So I actually only practice with Waseda once a week, and outside of that, I have one practice with my friend from Now or Never. His name is G, and
Yeah.
G is the man. Like, dude, he's super cool. Now he breaks still, of course, and he's also like started businesses out here in Tokyo. One of them is called TNG.
Dope.
It's the Next Generation Dance Academy Tokyo. And so because I help him out with his studio here and there, he lets me practice and use the studio. And I actually do most of my practices by myself. I would say 3 out of 5 practices a week are by myself. Um, and that to me is when I hated it at first, actually, like practicing by myself. But
Uh-huh.
now I actually get annoyed when I have to practice with other people because I can't like zone in 100% the way that I want.
Mhm.
And now my practices, I feel like have been producing a lot more original things that I've been working on, which I think are going to come out in the next few weeks because we got Massive Monkeys coming up. There's like there's more. I'm like getting ready to start battling more hardcore again, and
Right.
so having those solo practices is key. If you're doing just like footwork, like the creative aspect, yes, but in power moves as well, being by yourself, being able to like record, watch, tweak. When you have your friends there, it's great for the energy of like go faster, try harder. You know, there's that energy. But when you're by yourself, it's a technique game, and that's where I've been able to, I think, improve the most is in solo practice. So make sure you take time to do it by yourself. And if you can't do it by yourself, maybe you just don't love it as much as you thought. Maybe you love the social aspect, you know, and that's great.
Mhm. Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like if you can't be by yourself and like really just attack the dance, um, it might say something, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And I totally agree. Like when you're training by yourself and you're able to get inside your own head, that's when you create some of the, I guess, the most original stuff.
Oh, 100%, man. Definitely, definitely. But also the collaboration aspect is important too. So
Hmm.
don't just shut yourself in a room and only do that. Make sure you see the light of day and that people see what you're working on so you get some feedback on it, because it's great to like put yourself in a little hyperbolic time chamber, but eventually Goku's got to come out and like defeat Cell or whatever. So you got to do that too.
Yeah, straight up. Cool. Take us inside one of your solo practices. How do you structure it? Do you have a camera? What kind of music do you listen to?
I so just I want to attack the camera thing first because I think recording is important, especially for me doing the technical things that I'm trying to do. Like I've been working on getting my air flares back, and I got them back. I would say at this point, like they're pretty good, but I wouldn't have been able to do it without a camera. But here's the downside to a camera: you start recording everything and watching everything, and then you're not practicing. So what I try to do is I'll have like one day a week where I let myself record, and I let myself like geek out on like what I'm doing right and wrong, but then don't do it for the rest of the week or like maybe twice a week at most, because then you stop actually practicing and you're just like watching yourself and it becomes this like narcissistic thing. So that's the camera thing. But the way that I will structure my practices is when you go in, and I learned this from Storm. I watched like this video of Storm and he was like talking about how he had like 5 hour practices or something. I don't have time to do that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I try to get 2 to 3 in max when I can. And I go in there and I just try to make sure that the first 30 minutes is whatever I'm working on that's technical and I need all my strength for. So for now, that's air flares. So I go in, I warm up, and I do 30 minutes of air flares. And then after that, right now, because I'm prepping for battles, the whole practice is just running rounds, like complete start to finish, complete rounds, whether I mess up or not, like you just keep going. Because if you mess up in real life, like you don't got time to like do it again, so I just try to go through the whole thing. And lately what I've been adding in, there's this German girl who came to practice one time and she taught me some stretches. Man, like stretching is key. So I try to make sure at the end the last 30 minutes is dedicated to conditioning and stretching, because ever since I've really started stretching, like my injuries have gone down, my physical abilities have gone up. And so that's been the latest revelation. Like I learned this every 2 years, like, oh, I have to stretch like an idiot, but I'll like stop doing it after a while. So I've been trying to make sure that the first 30 minutes is something technical. The second, right now, because I'm prepping for battles, is just running. And then the third part is stretching. But if I'm not in like a prep for battle mode, then I'll do power for the first 30. After that, it's going to be like running rounds until I kind of get tired. And then what Storm said is like, all right, you just lie on your back and you just kind of start getting wild. So like that's kind of where the creativity happens, it's towards the end of practice when you've exhausted all your power, your energy, and then you just kind of go get creative with yourself and see if this thing happens, what happens then, So
Exactly.
that's how I'll kind of portion my practices out.
Okay, dope. Love it. And then you answered a lot of questions I was gonna ask, which is
Oh, my
perfect.
bad, bro.
No, you're
Sorry.
good. You're making my job easier.
Oh, for sure. I get, like I said, I get on the tangent.
Dude, which is perfect. One thing that I want to get a little bit deeper on then is the conditioning. What do you do for conditioning?
So I have this like P90X thing that I only have one thing and it's just for abs, but I try to do that like twice a week. And then outside
Okay.
of that, I don't really like mess with weights too much just because when I was in America, when I was living in America, I did more weights. I'd go to the gym. But in Japan, there's not really like a good option for that I found. So it's a lot of calisthenics, um, different variations of push-ups, handstand holds, anything along those lines. Like freezes is a really good thing to practice. Actually, I talked to Storm at Freestyle Session last year, and he was just like telling me about why calisthenics and like that type of practice is the best. So he was telling me like just to go through different types of freezes. Like it's hard to explain without showing, but all right, so like for a windmill, you need the
Yeah.
turtle freeze.
Hmm.
And for the halo, you kind of need like this like high side chair thing or whatever. And then you need a headstand, and then you need to go to handstand for 90s and air flares. So he's like, you create a routine basically where you run through all of those freezes multiple times. And not only is that going to help you get stronger, but it helps you with all your your technical and high level moves because you're working those muscle groups in a way that is exactly related to how you're going to be using them in motion.
Right.
So yeah, it's kind of like an extended version of stacks. If you know the game Stacks, where you like add one thing on top of another on top of another
Yeah, of course.
with your freezes. So it's kind of like that, but it's already decided from the beginning, and you just do that like a few times. Like if you watch Ives on his Instagram, sometimes he'll like post up his stories, and it'll be like him doing like hand glide. I'm sorry, actually he'll do like a reverse shoot through, and then he like goes to a hand glide, pushes up to a handstand, hits a 90, brings it back down to the hand glide, goes in the front again, puts his legs out in front with a shoot through. And like that type of stuff is going to make it so easy for you to execute your power moves when they're going faster and you have momentum instead of just, dead limbs and muscle. So, yeah.
Totally. Like breaking down power moves into like their most basic form.
Well, not just like you said, exactly. Like you break it down into its fundamentals, and then when you put it together, you refine all the pieces and then you put the puzzle together and it makes a lot more sense, instead of just like trying to solve the puzzle with all these like weird pieces that don't work yet.
No, it's true. And it's like when you're moving and you have momentum, sometimes a lot of the, I guess, technicality gets lost. So,
Oh, totally. Because you can use the momentum to make up for things that aren't there yet in terms of technique. Like so one thing that I found lately, like on my halo, like I've been using momentum to get through this part, but I'm not extending all the way onto the top of my head like I need to. And I was like, dude, that's why I'm getting this elbow injury, And so like figuring those things out, it's like it's a technique issue. That's why I'm getting these things wrong. And if you break it down to its purest, like most basic form and you go through each form, then the overall technique when it all comes together is going to work out so much better. But it takes time to do that, and most b-boys don't want to do that. Everybody's concerned about the result and not the process. So they're like, I'm just going to throw an air flare right now. It's like, well, you can't even handstand. How you gonna like fly around on one hand if you can't even do a standing on one hand? On two, So human nature.
No, but you're right. It is a process. And one thing that I love from my interview with Why Not is he really emphasized like loving the process and how breaking is a process, but you have to love it and embrace it because it's all about the journey.
Yeah, 100%, man. Why not? I love just like keeping up with him. Just seeing what he's up to is like, it's so dope. He's such an inspiration, man. And he's right. The process is the most important thing because the result is like, it's short lived, compared to the amount of time you put in to get that result. The process, if you can't love the process, and I think it goes back to what I was saying about like, if you can't break by yourself, if you can't love the process, then you're not gonna get too far with it. You're gonna burn out because you're chasing a result rather than chasing the actual thing of what it is, which is the process that Why Not's talking about. So respect to that guy, man.
Yeah, straight up. The guy's one of my biggest inspirations. It's such a, I guess, an honor to be able to interview him. So
yeah, he's a cool guy, man. He's another, like, for me, he's like another Moshe. Like when I talk to him, I'm just like I just try to be a sponge, just listen.
yeah, totally. And he's a professional in like every aspect of the word, which is I love it.
It's dope, man. He's dope. Shout outs to Why
Not. Yeah, straight up. What kind of advice would you give to, I guess, a b-boy who's he's in a place where he's kind of lost with his dance?
You know what I would say, man, is like it's the same advice that Moshe gave me. Draw a picture. Like literally, like if you're your character, what are you as a character? And then just try to like dance like that character. Or you don't even have to draw a picture. You can find inspiration from other places, but I think a lot of b-boys get very stuck in watching other b-boys, and then they try to like define themselves based off of watching these other people, and it ends up being derivative, of like these other people. So try to draw inspiration from other things, because as much as I love breaking, I try to make sure that I'm doing other things outside of breaking, whether that's business or a different type of art. You know what I mean? Working with like illustration, anything like that. And you take, like, you got to think of this dance as not like, it's not the end all be all. This dance is an expression of your life, right? So if your life is lacking, then your dance is going to be lacking. So make sure that other parts of your life are a little bit full as well, and take that inspiration into your dance. It's super like vague, I understand, but it's It's honestly the best advice that I have. Yeah,
Totally. It's like it's totally well said and it's 100% true. Like I totally believe it.
for sure. Okay. Dope. Well,
Awesome,
yeah, I mean, for
man.
anybody out there who's
Cool.
trying to get better, like there's a million ways to do it. And like you can listen to me, you can listen to Why Not, you can listen to all these people, but it only is going to come from you, whatever effort you're putting in. So, study up, but also make sure that you're not just studying, that you're actually doing.
Dope. Very well said. Love it, man.
For sure.
Cool. And you're gonna be out in Seattle pretty soon?
Yeah, I'm going to be at Massive Monkeys, entering with Rock Force, and then I think I'm going to be entering with some old homies from Guerrilla Warfare for Style Elements. And yeah,
Dope.
I don't know, I think this year is going to be pretty cool in terms of entering. We just won Foundation like a couple months back, the Foundation anniversary here in Tokyo as Rock
Yeah.
Force. We're
Yeah.
trying to work on some other big events that we're trying to win too. So it's really cool to see how, like Kareem Machine and Morris, like these superstars in the breaking community. It's cool to be able to collaborate with them and see how they approach these big these events, and like what their mindset is going into it. So I'm learning a lot from that as well. So maybe next time if we do another interview, I'll be able to like talk about that more as I have more experience with it.
Oof, yes, I would love to.
For
So
sure.
what's your squad looking like for Massive Monkeys Day? It's 3-on-3, right?
It is a 3-on-3. So it's gonna be me, Ives, and Kareem this time. So Ives just won the American Red Bull qualifier, and Kareem has won, so many different crazy world events. So I'm just like, all
Yeah.
right, time for me to just not mess up. But yeah, we'll see how I
No,
do, man. See.
dope. No, it'll be good. I guess you won the 4-on-4 last time you were in Seattle. I guess it was Sweet 16, I think.
Yeah, yeah, that was cool. I got to enter with Jax, box cutter, who's like the ultimate like soul shifter. He's all over the place, all over the world, never where
Oh
he's at.
yeah.
So there's him. So we
Yeah.
entered with Ali from what's his crew? Knucklehead Zoo. Yeah, and
Knucklehead,
then
yeah.
Jax from Now or Never, and then Box Cutter. And then we showed up, and it was just like we just felt like jerks because we were like all from different places. We all flew in for this event, and it was like it was a cool battle. It was like definitely people were like teaming up with their homies type of thing. It wasn't like we came in with this like messed up squad, and it was not cool, man. So yeah, sorry to next time I'll bring my real squad.
It was dope. It was dope.
For sure.
Anyways, yeah. And I know you got a lot going on. What I guess if people want to keep up with what you got going on, where can they find you?
Yeah, so like I said, my mentor Mega Man, he and I we started this thing called Spin Control, and you can find us on Instagram at the Spin Control. You can also find me personally on Instagram at BBOY Mad Action. That's pretty much the only place where I do anything breaking wise. Like my Facebook is just like more personal at this point, so like no point in adding me there. Um, yeah, so I'd say basically those two things. Check out our website at spincontrol.co, and yeah, if you're trying to like up your power game or whatever, check out some of our products. We got some really cool stuff coming down the line later this year. We've been prepping for it for a while, so yeah, definitely stay tuned, and hope you guys support.
For sure, man. I'm pretty stoked to hear, or I guess to see what you guys are gonna be putting out there. So,
For sure. Well, yo, Wolby, thank you for having me on the show, man. I appreciate it.
yeah, dude, 100%. All right, guys, you've been hanging out with Matt Action and your host, Wolvie. Head over to inthecipher.com and search Matt Action in the search bar, and his show notes page will come up with everything and everyone we've been talking about today, including all his links, all his Instagram pages, Spin Control, the works. Just want to say a big thank you to you, Matt, for sharing your unique perspective on this dance. I love the stories that you shared and a really, really unique perspective and taking us into our session. So really, really appreciate it. Hope to have you back on the show, man. But until then, we will catch you in the cipher.
For sure. Thank you, Wolby. Peace, man.
And there we have it, guys. B-Boy, Matt Action, Rock Force crew, Waseda Breakers. Really dope to have him on the show and share his unique perspective on coming up with these well-renowned B-Boys and being parts of very well-renowned crews. And I'm really excited to put what he shared in the show into practice in my own training. And actually, I just watched a headspin tutorial that Matt Action did on Vince Sandy's channel. So thanks, Matt. Learning headspins right now. Appreciate it, bro. So if you want a headspin workshop in your town, hit him up. It'll be dope, I promise. Definitely check him out. spincontrol.co, instagram.com/thespincontrol, or at bboymattaction. As he said in the interview, he's got some stuff coming up with Spin Control, so definitely follow and make sure you don't miss what he's got going on. While you're checking Matt and Spin Control on Instagram, be sure to give us a follow too at _in_the_cypher. There I share some behind the scenes and also announce the new guests. I got a bunch of people DMing me on guests that they want to have on the show. If you're not following us yet, give us a follow. Either comment on a photo or DM me a B-boy or B-girl you want me to have on the show. And even better, let me know exactly what you want to ask them. It's my goal with this podcast to help you. So if I know exactly the information that you want, I will do my best to get it for you. I really appreciate the support, guys. It's been crazy these past couple of weeks. But yeah, I'm very excited for this next episode to come out. We've had a lot of people commenting and DMing me about this B-boy and trying to get him on the show. They had a bunch of questions lined up for him. It was a really, really dope interview, and I'm really excited for this one to go live. So follow us on Instagram. You'll know right away who it is and when I'm going to drop it. So until then, guys, peace out, take care, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Bye-bye.